Hi you guys, it's Kayla, and today's video is the first Psalms video that I said I would be doing. Sorry it took so long. So I'm just going to start off with Psalms 1, and these are kind of just things that came into my mind, prayers that came into my mind, certain people that came into my mind while reading through the Psalms. And of course, if you have any questions, comments, personal reflections, make sure to write the verse that you are speaking about and then comment below on whatever that is. So on Psalm 1, which if you are curious, you can just look this up on BibleGateway.com or something, and if you're curious on which exact passage, I'm not going to read them aloud to you or anything. I kind of felt like Psalm 1 set the tone for this process that I wanted to sort of embark on this year, which was going through the Psalms and continuing to build my knowledge in Christ and focus more on Him daily. I wanted to focus more on God and less on what the world says about me, but more on what God says, and to be in good company and know that the Lord looks over those who follow Him. And that's kind of what Psalm 1 kind of just, when I read it, that's what I felt like it was saying, and that's how I read the text. If you read something differently, please let me know. Psalm 2, for me, verses 10 through 12 really stood out when reading. It's a warning to those in power and the people who rule the earth, which is essentially all of us who live on the earth. We rule, humans were given dominion of the earth, and we are supposed to serve the Lord with fear and celebrate His rule with trembling. And I actually got an email about this from someone asking, how do you serve the Lord with fear and trembling? And so I decided to do a little extra studying on that, and I went to Matthew Henry's commentary where he says, whatever we rejoice in this world, it must always be with trembling because of the uncertainty of all things in it. To welcome Jesus Christ and submit to Him is our wisdom and interest. Let Him be very dear and precious, love Him above all, and love Him in sincerity. And so I think that what that's saying is, blessed are those who take refuge in God, and those who do not will see destruction, but also to celebrate His rule and trembling, because ultimately we do not know everything that He has in store for us, and so we must take each day with some sort of understanding of that. Psalm 3 has actually been something that is highlighted in my Bible, and I've read it countless of times. I've reflected on it a lot during my battle with depression, and I kind of feel like this world is just pushing against me. That's kind of how I feel when I am battling, and in the depths of my depression is just the world is so heavy on me. And I feel hopeless and I feel forgotten, and this verse reminds me that God is with me and He holds me up when I'm weak, and I choose life and I choose not to end it because the Lord sustains me, and I will have tens of thousands of fears and thoughts that overwhelm my brain, pounds of sadness that overcome me. But because I have faith in the Lord, I know that He will deliver me in those times, and that is why I continue to choose life in the times that I'm just feeling overcome with depression. And this verse has been something that has been very prominent in my life. Psalm 4 is kind of this awesome moment where David, who's the writer of Psalms, is kind of just sharing his life through these passages, and it's a journey with a man whose relationship with God, it's a journey with a man, and you get to see his relationship with God and how it grows and how it struggles, and his thoughts and his fears, and all of his experiences firsthand. And you know that you're not alone in these thoughts and wonders, because I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I read a passage in Psalms and I'm like, wow, I feel like I just wrote that in my journal. And it's very comforting to know that even, 1,000 or 2,000 years ago, people were still dealing and struggling with these thoughts, and God helped them through it. So in Psalm 4, when I read this, the things that my heart gravitated towards were, fill my heart with joy and in peace I will lie down and sleep, for you alone, Lord. Make me dwell in safety. Because as many of you probably also experience, life has ups and downs, and deep, deep downs at times. And I know that in my times of fear and in times of joy that God is there. And that's kind of what Psalm 4 made me feel, and made me, like gravitate on and like focus on for my time and my quiet time. Psalm 5. For some reason, when I read this verse, my initial reaction was, wow, this verse kind of reminds me of cyberbullying. And obviously that wasn't a thing back when this was written, but I mean, bullying and harshness and terrorism was a thing back then for sure. And David is experiencing harshness from his people, and I think anyone who is experiencing bullying of any type can use this as a prayer against their offenders, I guess. And although I would also recommend praying for the individual that is bullying you, because something is most likely going on in their life causing them to want to inflict pain on others. But that's my 2 cents, is that this passage of Psalm 5 just reminded me of feeling afflicted from the world and from specific people who are trying to tear you down. Psalm 6. This is another verse that really speaks to my heart in times where I am depressed or anxious. And my heart just aches because this has been my prayer so many times. So many times I have felt like these exact words leave my mouth and in my bed, and just feeling faint, feeling pain, and my soul hurting so deep into my bones it like hurts, and asking God, like, why is this still happening? Why am I still sick? Why am I still dealing with depression? Why am I still having stomach pains? Why am I still seeing doctors? All this stuff. Why can't I fully escape my diseases and my disease of, depression and whatnot? And sometimes I get exhausted from it and I want to give up, and I fill my sheets and my tissues with tears, and I even have a pillow, where is it? This pillow, where I have mascara like stained all over it just from crying. And these last few verses though in Psalm 6 are so powerful to me. It says, away all evil of thoughts, spirits, people, etc. The Lord does provide peace in time. He hears my anguish, my cries, and accepts my prayers. And I think in these times of confusion and frustration, we just have to trust in those words wholeheartedly. On to Psalm 7. I wrote, yikes, this is so dark. I have notes written down here, that's why I'm kind of glancing. But what I do love is that it seems to be this conversation between God and David, which I really feel as though quiet times and journal times and prayer times really do need to be this conversation with God. And so I love how well that this shows that. But David is going through a lot and is speaking with God throughout the way, and it was encouraging to see the progression through the Psalms depending on what's going on with David's life. And as you can see, as we've gone through 7 Psalms now, there's such a different heart going into each one of them, and it just has to go with what's going on in David's life. He wants him to bring his judgment now, and I think sometimes we just have that God, come now, I want to hang out with you in person, in heaven, all the time, just come now, I'm so tired of earth. And I kind of just feel like that's where David was at his heart too. Psalm 8 is a very lovely psalm considering the past one, since this is 8 and 7 was so dark. And this one is just praising God for his beautiful creation and wondering how mankind was blessed with the care of God, and how God wanted to give us glory and honor and ruling over the earth. And it says, given ruling all flocks, herds, animals of the wild, birds of the sky, fish in the sea, and all that swim in the paths of the sea. And this verse really made me ponder this kind of debate that I've come across of vegan versus omnivore. And because we were given reign over the animals by God and the creatures, and so there's this thing of like, was this permission to eat them, or was this permission to just overlook their life? What was this? And I personally think, after lots of consideration and reading, that we do have given permission to rule over them as well as eat them, although I do believe that the world today treats animals much differently than they did in the past, and meat was not consumed as heavily or as often as it is nowadays, nor is the production of animals used so industrial, I guess, like making Cheetos. Like, they treat cows like they're making Cheetos and like they're disposable, and I just think that that's terrible. So I'm curious to what your thoughts are on Psalm 8. So make sure when you're asking a question or a comment on this video to write which psalm you are referencing and then put your comment below it. Moving on to Psalm 9, we are almost through for this video, but verses 15 through 20 really stood out to me, especially with recent happenings with the news and with different countries warring in Iris and all these attacks and just terrible things going on in the world. And the wicked are always going to be a part of Satan. And I know that that's kind of like harsh to say, but it's true. And the wicked will always go into the realm of the dead, like this verse says. God will have his justice fully in the end, and God will not forget the needy, and the hope of the afflicted will never perish. And it just says, let the nations know they are only mortal. And I went, that's what I really went, that's good stuff. No matter how much of a country or the world that a person reigns, they are still mortal and they will still die. And I think that that is such a good reminder that no matter how much power, no matter how much money, no matter how much of anything you have, you are still going to die unless you have Jesus. And after this verse, I really just felt called to pray for the nations, to pray for their leaders, and to pray for those who are attacking as well as those being attacked and afflicted. And so I spent a lot of time after Psalm 9 just kind of praying for various nations, and went throughout the map, and kind of just did my thing. Psalm 10, this is kind of what I took from it, was sometimes I find myself being like, man, why are these people so successful when they are so sucky to everyone and they are just the worst people ever? And when I read this, I was just like, well, David dealt with that too, and that's about it, like, we are not alone. There have been many people that have had these thoughts, and God has helped them through it. And that's what we just have to keep our eyes on. Psalm 11. I kind of just wrote a commentary on this of like normal ways of understanding, where David's friends are like, man, you need to leave. People are trying to kill you. And David's all, nah. God is all, I'm safe, and I'm satisfied with that. And that is some trust right there. And I am all for seeking advice and counsel from friends, family, counselors, whatnot, but don't forget to include God, because I think that that's the ultimate message of David, is like his friends are giving him counsel, but ultimately God has the final say on what his decision is. And ultimately God really knows the answer. He really knows your path, and he really knows what the outcome is in the future, where all of us are just human and we actually don't know the answers to everything, believe it or not. Psalm 12, this kind of reminded me of verse 9, where I just see so much evil in the world, and I go to a Christian university personally right now, and even within, but most predominantly once I get outside of that like Christian bubble, I am aware of like the craziness and evil in the world these days, and I see it in books, I see it in movies, I see it in television shows, I see it in the language of the young children that I see running around my town, cursing profanity at ages that are bewildering. And it seems like I cannot escape a world without seeing like boobs and cussing and drugs, and it's so frustrating because I just feel like they're making our society immune to these things that should be appalling to us. And that's kind of what Psalm 12 kind of made me feel. It was just kind of like, man, I need to pray for this generation because it is getting crazy up in here. And yeah, that's kind of the update for the Psalms up until Psalm 12. I will hopefully be more consistent in being able to post weekly. Over the weekend I got a nasty flu, and so this is Monday, this is up until Psalm 12. Please leave your comments below, and I'm really curious to see what you guys have thought, things that you guys have learned, and different things that you have looked up. If you are interested in seeing the rest, make sure to subscribe to my channel, as well as follow me on Instagram just for daily inspirations and peeks into my life at Kayla's Joy. And thank you so much for watching. Bye!